Securing this had provided a possible escape route. As Skorzeny approached the hotel, his pilot realized that the small meadow they thought could provide a safe landing area was in fact a steep ski slope. They would have to crash land near the hotel. The glider came to a halt just 20 yards from the front door. Skorzeny and his troops stormed the building. Bursting into Mussolini's room and taking his Italian guards by complete surprise. The entire operation to free Mussolini had taken less than 12 minutes, and not a single shot had been fired. But then came news of a major problem. The light aircraft that was supposed to take Mussolini to Rome from the lower cable car station had been damaged. Skorzeny quickly called up another light aircraft, a Feisler Storch, and ordered it to land near the hotel. His men cleared the area of shattered gliders to form an improvised airstrip. They waited anxiously to see if the little aircraft could land. It did, but not without more problems. In an aircraft designed for carrying only 2 people, Skorzeny insisted on accompanying Mussolini and squeezed his 6-foot-4-inch frame into a tight space behind the dictator. Overloaded with Skorzeny and Mussolini, the pilot reluctantly revved the engine to maximum power. With the brake released, the aircraft shot over the edge of the mountain and plunged down into the valley. Having regained control, the pilot flew Mussolini to the Special Forces base near Rome. There, a Heinkel HE-111 bomber was waiting to take Il Duce to Vienna. Skorzeny rode with him to visit his wife and family at home. From there, Mussolini flew to Hitler's headquarters at Rastenburg in East Prussia, where the 2 dictators were reunited. The operation had been a dazzling success. General Student's paratroops were rewarded for their part in the mission, but it was Skorzeny and his special forces that received the glory. At a jubilant Nazi rally in Berlin, Skorzeny was praised by Hitler's propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, and given operational control of all German special forces. On the 20th of July 1944, an attempt to assassinate Hitler with a bomb planted at his headquarters failed. In the retribution that followed, many of Germany's high command were arrested and put on trial. Admiral Canaris, head of the Abwehr, was among them. Skorzeny was now undisputed leader of Hitler's special forces, and as the Third Reich began to collapse, there was no shortage of missions. By September 1944, Admiral Horthy, leader of Hitler's ally Hungary, was in secret negotiations with Germany's enemies. He was talking to Yugoslav partisan leader Tito. Horthy wanted to make peace with Russia and have done with the war. Hitler ordered Skorzeny to prevent this. Moving into Budapest, Skorzeny and his special forces tracked down Horthy's son Miklos, a keen supporter of peace with Russia, to a house in a Budapest street, where he was attending a meeting with communists. On the 16th of October, Skorzeny's troops burst in and after some brief shooting, grabbed Miklos and bundled him up in a Persian rug. He was then flown to Germany. But his father refused to be cowed by this kidnapping and surrounded himself with Hungarian troops in the Royal Palace in Budapest, even making a radio broadcast calling for a separate peace with Russia. Skorzeny had no choice but to go into the palace and led a convoy of trucks with a few Tiger tanks in support. Having first managed to bluff his way past some roadblocks, he was then met by a solid barrier, manned by Hungarian troops. Using one of the Tiger tanks, Skorzeny smashed through the barricade and headed for the palace. There, the guards were quickly overwhelmed, and Horthy was captured at a cost of less than 20 Special Forces soldiers. Horthy was quickly replaced by a hardline fascist leader. Hungary would fight on alongside Germany to the bitter end. Meanwhile, Hitler's enemies were closing in on all sides. A last desperate gamble was planned. To help achieve this last-minute victory, the Führer turned once again to Otto Skorzeny. Within a month, Hitler had decided to gamble everything on an offensive in the West. The plan was for mass German tanks and troops to burst out of the mist of the Ardennes forest in an effort to reach Antwerp and split the American and British advance. Skorzeny's troops would play a key role. 9 teams using US uniforms and vehicles would be infiltrated to capture and hold the Meuse bridges, vital for the advance, until the main force, led by Skorzeny himself, codenamed Panzer Brigade 50, and also disguised as Americans, could relieve them. Others, all fluent English speakers, would roam behind the lines in captured jeeps, creating confusion by sabotaging US supply depots, cutting telephone lines, switching road signs, and moving minefield markers. Skorzeny had just 5 weeks to prepare, and things went badly from the start. Only 10 fluent English speakers could be recruited. A lack of usable American equipment meant that less than half the 300 captured jeeps and trucks requested were available, and only 2 captured tanks instead of the 15 needed. Instead, German Panthers and assault guns were disguised as American M10 tank destroyers with added pieces of sheet metal. By December 1944, Skorzeny had 2,500 men, 30 tanks, and a host of jeeps, trucks, and assault guns. His teams moved into position with the assault troops. The Battle of the Bulge began on the 16th of December. The heavy German bombardment was a massive shock to the inexperienced American troops holding what was reckoned to be a quiet sector of the front. Under cover of bad weather, almost 250,000 German troops poured through the dense Belgian forest, taking large numbers of days prisoners. Seven of Skorzeny's teams successfully infiltrated the lines, while 2 were captured. Only 1 actually reached the Meuse, but was unable to take the bridge. The remainder were pinned down. And on the first day of the attack, Skorzeny's backup brigade was delayed in a massive German traffic jam, far short of the target bridges. Forced to change his plans, Skorzeny deployed his men to help capture a crossroads at Malmedy. Though he successfully infiltrated the American positions, one of his soldiers was captured and admitted everything to the Americans, who were now prepared for the attack. Under heavy US artillery fire, Skorzeny withdrew his troops. He was wounded in the face by shrapnel, almost losing one eye.